Hello and welcome to Move the Line, presented by 4for4 Bets. I'm Ryan Noonan, joined here as always by my friend Connor Allen. It is exciting time in the world of sports. It's the U.S. Open. We have the Celtics a game away from Banner 18, Connor, but football never stops. How we doing?
I'm good. Yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to face the wrath of Twitter, but I'm debating it. Every single NBA game that goes by, I just want to tweet out the NBA sucks. I could not further like I just couldn't hate it more. It's just terrible. Like there was the first half last night was great. The Celtics were like losing, by a lot, came back, then they blew a 20-point lead. Like that's what it took for the game to be somewhat interesting is the Celtics blowing a 21-point lead in the fourth quarter. And they still end up winning by 7. I don't know. And that was the most interesting game in the series was this. And it frankly wasn't that interesting. I mean, for me, because again, I'm not a Celtics fan, so I don't care. You're happy. All my Celtics fans are happy. Me, as a fan who wants to just watch good games, I just could not care less about the NBA right now. Just straight up terrible product. So I don't know if I'm ready to tweet that out yet because I know it's gonna be a long day in my mentions, but this seems like a somewhat safe space. So I can present you with that option.
Yeah, as we get further along in the playoffs, and we have more. I mean, they're all island games theoretically, right? That's designed for TV
Right.
purposes. And when you have these blowouts or you have something like that, it is sometimes tough to watch if you don't have a dog in the fight, or you don't have a big betting card on it or whatever, a future that you're sweating. And from a fandom standpoint, we've talked about it before. The Celtics are kind of the only team that I'm still in high school fandom mode with. I don't bet the NBA very much. We don't cover the NBA. So it's like the one place where it's still kind of sacred. I'm not worrying about bets or anything like that. I still like my team from growing up. I'm a cover golf, cover football. I'm kind of a basketball guy at heart. This is kind of my favorite sport growing up. The one I was best at actually playing as well. So it's my team. So yeah, I understand it. So yeah, get the duck boats ready. Let's just seal the deal here. Game 4, put Luka and company out of their misery. Yeah, if it would have been the Nuggets, I think we would have had probably a better series. But hey, they didn't do their part, and here we are. So, but we're here today to talk football, NFL football, and it's that time of year. People float out some stuff. You want to have some takes. You start to get into some roster construction, the draft. We're on the other side of that. We're on the other side of the meat and potatoes of free agency, and really have I think a fairly good understanding about what 98% of these rosters are going to look like as the season kind of comes to training camps and OTAs and all that stuff starting to pop up. So we have opinions, we have takes, and we have bold predictions, and that's where we are today. We want to float out some of our early bold predictions for the upcoming NFL season. If you want to hang with us this season, you want to get into all the bets and all the things that we're doing over at 4for4, you need a betting subscription. 4for4.com/plans gets you the betting sub, gets you access to all that we do. So no matter how you do football speculation, old school season-long fantasy, best ball, you want to get into props and all the stuff that we're doing. You want to smash bad quarterback unders with Connor. You want to get into tackle streets with me. All those things, you get that betting sub, get in our Discord. Again, insane amount of tools, data, all that stuff for you as well. So it's not just picks and content. There's a lot of other stuff that can help you, teach a man to fish kind of a scenario. So get the betting sub, get you access to all that we're doing. You definitely want to check that out. So, all right, my friend, I'm going to give the floor to you first. Bold predictions. We can go anywhere with this. I don't know any of yours. Team level, player level, things that we can bet on, angles that we can kind of target these bold predictions. What do you got?
Yeah, so the goal here for this show is kind of just give our bold predictions and then how we can bet on that as well. So I'm going to start off kind of lukewarm, not that hot. We're talking about, a nice medium temperature here. Maybe, you can bathe in it, maybe a little hot tub temperature here. So we're talking about, I like the Seattle Seahawks to win 9+ games this year. Over 8.5 wins is +195 at circa. Similar odds to make the playoffs right now, which is kind of strange. So I think the best way to play it would be +195 at circa, because if they're winning 9 games, they probably make the playoffs, but not guaranteed. Whereas if they win 9 games, they win 9 games and you win your bet. So I think +195 is a solid way to look at it. I think you can take some derivatives on them as well. If we talked about a little bit in the last episode, but I think that Mike McDonald could come in and do what he did with this Ravens defense last year. And, they really, really ascend to that top 5-ish, top 10 range. We're talking about a ceiling outcome here. And then offensively, we have Ryan Grubb coming in from Washington, just completely different system than what we're used to. I think has some new innovative ideas. That doesn't always work out from the college to NFL transition, but I think that in this scenario, this blend of like old school Seattle with like just a couple, like more motion and, the way you're stacking receivers, the route concepts, things like that. When you have DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Tyler Lockett, in addition to a quarterback in Geno Smith, who, again, what has been very good at times in the last couple of years, it just hasn't always all come together. Like, I think that the ceiling on this team is a lot higher than what the market's giving credit for. So I like alt overs for the Seattle team, and maybe some NFC. Who knows?
Ooh, okay, spicy. I probably should start like NFC West, right? You probably get a pretty good number on basically a non-Niners NFC West. I'm with you. I danced around some Seattle stuff for this as well. I couldn't find a great way to attack it, but I'm kind of with you. Like I'm a little bit optimistic. I think I'm excited about the defense. I think Mike McDonald is all the things you said. I think there could be a chance he's a real talent elevator, and it's hard not to be optimistic on some of the things the offense can do too, especially if the offensive line can stay healthy. That was a massive, massive issue for them. You lose your bookend tackles for like a 10-game stretch consecutively there at the start or early in the season. So I think we had a great sense of really who Seattle was last year, and you keep Geno clean protection. That's kind of his thing, right? He's super accurate. JSN's extending names. So I like Seattle. I like that quite a bit. All right. More of my stuff is negative. I felt bad. I was trying to find some like positive stuff.
I love it. That's great. All mine is positive. So this is a great balance.
This is opposite for us because you're like an under guy typically. And like when I bet like player,
negative. I'm so negative all the time.
Yeah, my mind often goes to like positive stuff for like, overs and stuff like that I have to pull back on. So yeah, I'm a little bit more negative. I want to start with I'm not super excited about the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't love their offseason. I think the rest of the teams in the division all got better. Basically, I was trying to have a derivative of like, okay, I can't come on the show and talk about the Colts again, right? I've kind of done that, right? Like, I've kind of covered my bold predictions on the Colts being a viable playoff contender, a viable threat to the Texans, who I think are still very much the class of that division. Jacksonville, I don't know. I think they've just kind of treaded water or got worse. You losing Calvin Ridley, I think, is impactful. They get Brian Thomas Jr. and Gabe Davis to add to that wide receiver room. It's that somewhat redundant from like how those guys work. Those don't feel like complementary players. It puts a big burden on Christian Kirk, and Evan Ingram. And look, I'm okay and optimistic about maybe Trevor Lawrence taking another step, but we've kind of been waiting for that. It really hasn't happened. He really hasn't been that guy. Right? Like that hasn't really happened. So that offense, I still think is kind of middle of the pack. And I think their defense took a step back. I think Ryan Nielsen could be an interesting addition from a defensive coordinator standpoint. They're probably going to play a lot more man, but that's actually kind of the problem for me is I don't believe in the cornerback room at all. I think it's a really problematic thing for them. And they brought back and retained Josh Allen at defensive end. But like they need Trayvon Walker to be the guy. He needs to start delivering on 101 type of stuff. Otherwise, the depth behind them is not very great. Like Rashawn Jenkins left in free agency, so I think the secondary is a problem. The schedule is kind of tough too when you look at how they start the season. On the road to Miami, then they're home with Cleveland. Hey, Cleveland's probably a pretty good football team this year. Then they're back on the road for the next two, Buffalo and Houston. It's kind of it's a tough September for them. Then Indy's a big one, especially when you kind of consider them being viable AFC playoff contenders and in the division. That's kind of a tough stretch. So there's a couple ways to go about this from a like betting way that I think is like interesting price wise. You can go Jags to miss the playoffs, but MGM offers, and actually DraftKings has this too in a different way. Starting the season 0-5. MGM, it's 15-1, is 12-1 on DraftKings. So it's basically, I mean, like some of those games are coin flips. They're probably, if I were to look at your matrix of spreads, there's some like within a field goal or so. I imagine. I'm sure they're probably small favorites at home to Cleveland. They're probably a small favorite at home to Indy in Week 5. But to me, it kind of comes down to the Week 5 game against Indy because I think they're probably a comfortable dog in those three that are tough to start. So 15-1. 12-1 on DraftKings, more readily available for people to be able to jump down on. So I think that's a tough start. I think their first win probably comes on the road. They could probably go 0-6. They get the Bears in London. They get London with the Bears and the Patriots in back-to-back weeks. So I think they find their first win in London. So 15-1, Jags start 0-5. Miss the playoffs isn't a great price. It's not really a bold prediction either. So 0-5 feels more bold.
Yeah, that's spicy for sure. Yeah, right now I'm looking at the look ahead lines. They're plus 3.5 in week 1, -1, like you mentioned, week 2.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's basically a coin flip. Plus 4.5 in week 3, plus 3.5 in week 4, and then -2.5 in week 5. So yeah, you're really looking at. I mean, they can win as like an upset in any of those games, but I do think that like getting over 3.5 generally, in my mind, is like less of a coin flip game, more of like a uphill battle. Outside looking in. So yeah, that's kind of a fun way to play it. 15-1. Also, you can bet their alt under at circa 7.5 wins plus 235.
Mm-hmm.
It's not bad. I mean, 6-7 wins. I mean, again, 6-7 wins are on the lower range of their outcomes, but you're getting plus 235. Yeah, I don't think it's terrible, to be honest. It just, my only concern is that like Trevor Lawrence can will them certain places, but
sure.
I mean, he hasn't been consistent enough for that to happen. Like and the weapons got worse for sure. I mean, it's like, Gabe Davis is just gonna be running cardio. Like, I mean, it's just literally, I don't think he's gonna catch the ball. Just running like clear out routes the entire season. It's like what they had Calvin really doing, like kind of some of the time. Like they had him just like sometimes the outside weapon just didn't touch the ball some games. So I think Christian Kirk's gonna feast though. That's kind of an interesting way
for sure. And I think Ingram probably has a nice little year too, for sure. They need that, right? Because otherwise it's not a great offensive line. It's kind of middle of the pack. It just doesn't seem. It really falls on can Lawrence be who we thought he was coming into the league? Can he be a talent elevator? Can they find a way to make, whether it's Brian Thomas or Gabe Davis, not redundant and not cardio club, where, if they don't hit a splashy 25+ yard play, they're kind of not making an impact on the game. So yeah, I'm worried about the secondary. It's going to be a lot of man, and I don't know that they have the dogs to do it.
Yeah, no, I like that for sure.
Number 2 for you. What do you got?
So my second one's going to be a player take. So from here on out, I think most of the takes are a little bit aggressive. We're talking about like boiling water at this point. The temperature is very, very hot. I'm going to go with Drake London leads the league in receiving yards and wins Offensive Player of the Year. We're looking at 50-1 in most spots. If you're in our Discord, I posted before the Falcons got Kirk Cousins, there was 150-1 that we bet. I still think 50-1 is fine. So, I mean, he was an elite prospect coming out, just hasn't had consistent volume or good quarterback play. So Drake London has seen 8+ targets in 12 career games only, averaged 88 receiving yards in those games. That was with Marcus Mariota, Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heineke as his quarterbacks. Gets a massive quarterback upgrade. They're moving on from Arthur Smith to Zach Robinson. Like, I think that we have a schematic upgrades, we have volume upgrades, we have, efficiency upgrades. Like everything is coming together for Drake London to see 150 targets from a good quarterback. And now, like, some of the counter argument was, I got on Twitter, I posted a similar stat about Drake London, was like, oh, well, he doesn't have breakaway speed, or he doesn't, really win downfield too much, doesn't make my guys miss. I just don't think that matters for a guy like Drake London. He wins in different ways. Like, and that's, I think, like Stephon Diggs, I mean, is just a pure route runner and gets a lot of volume. Michael Thomas, kind of same thing. Like, there are guys who win in different ways. He's not Tyreek Hill. He's not Justin Jefferson. That's for sure. But, if you can get him 150 targets from a good quarterback, I think that the ceiling is really, really high for a guy like Drake London. So for me, I think 18-1 most receiving yards is not a great price, admittedly. I think the 50-1 Offensive Player of the Year is a little bit better, because if he leads the league in receiving yards, I think that, he's a little bit more live there. So I don't know, kind of a fun way to get some alt exposure on Drake London. And FanDuel usually releases like 1,250+ receiving yards, 1,500+, like those alts. I'll probably sprinkle a little bit on that as well when those drop.
Even if he doesn't actually lead the league in receiving yards and he's kind of in the mix, but he catches 15 touchdowns, or big bodied red zone threat. I think that is very much, plus you get a better number, right? So you're kind of covering yourself both ways. And I think that's a nice little look. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know that Mike Evans is a great comp for him, but Mike Evans doesn't make guys miss. He doesn't run an insane, like, diverse route tree. Like, he can beat you in contested catches. He can beat you down the field with his size. his big body. And yeah, it's hard not to argue the talent upgrade quarterback is ginormous. So I like it.
And I looked at his route running too for Matt Harmon. He's gotten better every year against man, which is like a massive signal. He's played as like almost a true X receiver. Last year they had him in the slot a little bit more than the previous year. Like there's been early rumbles that they'll move him around a little bit more. So like that's obviously big for just like total output. You know, if you move him as like a big slot occasionally, even like 20 to 25% of his routes coming there instead of 10 to 11%, could go a long way. So, and I don't view the people they brought in with Darnell Mooney and Rondo Moore as like legit competition. I think that's more of like helping the offense be more efficient as a whole. So it's like, just helps everyone.
Yeah, I like it. I like it quite a bit. All right, I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm going to go on the defensive side here for some couple thoughts. I'm going to give you a couple looks here. I'm going to talk about some trends in terms of defensive rookie of the year. Some pretty, I think, predictable trends that we've seen in the last handful of years. So we have 5 out of the last 8 winners have been edge rushers after last year. We have not had a safety win this since Mark Carrier back in 1990, so you can kind of cross those guys off your list. I think there's another predictable trend too. We've had basically, for the most part of the past decade, it's been a top 15 pick. You've only had 2. You had Marcus Peters just outside of the top 15. He was 18th overall in 2015 to win Defensive Player of the Year. The only other kind of anomaly in this situation has been Shaq Leonard, Darius Leonard with the Colts. The only non-first round selection to win Defensive Rookie of the Year over the past 17 years. He's also the only linebacker that's won over the past decade. So that doesn't happen very often, but I do think that that's kind of built into the price, I think, at this point, because I think that Junior Colson, linebacker for the Chargers, has a great case based on his price. 50-1 on DraftKings for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He obviously continuity coming over, working with Jim Harbaugh the last handful of years in Michigan. The linebacker room ahead of him is pretty weak. Most of the guys there have left. Denzel Perryman is kind of the de facto linebacker 1, who's really strong when he's on the field. Dude just gets hurt all the time. So don't feel really good about him being able to last and kind of hold on to that spot all year. I like Diane Henley. He was a second round linebacker last year that they drafted, but this coaching staff is not tied to him at all. He did not see the field much at all. Like, they are going to want to play Junior Colson, the guy they're familiar with, who is, I think, going to be able to eat some tackles. So if you have, I think it correlates basically to whatever you think the Chargers are going to be. If you think the Chargers are going to be viable as a playoff team, I think Colson has a really nice path to breaking a little bit of the trend here of what happens with linebackers in this award. So that's kind of what, Leonard did. The Colts had a better year than expected. He just compiled tackles. He was on the field and the team exceeded expectations and no one really emerged. So that's kind of it too, was if none of these other edge rushers towards the top of the board. And look, we went 15 picks until we got a defensive player at the top of the board. So it's not like we're going up against Will Anderson Jr. from last year. You remember the expectations are high. So when he starts to perform like people thought he was going to do, then instantly you start to go, okay, we need to reward him for this. We just don't have that Colson's fighting against. So at a price of 50-1, where he could be, a 90% linebacker that could, compile tackles here. Again, one of the best missed tackle rates coming out of college in a very, very long time. Outstanding coverage linebacker too. So these are just things that are going to earn him playing time and keep him on the field. I like that price for him too. Another one, just to kind of stay in it, if you want to stay in the mix of what the trends are telling you, that this is going to be an edge rusher, even though this guy is a little bit outside, he's going to fall outside the threshold of top 15 picks in first round. Chris Braswell, edge rusher for Tampa, second round pick, 57th overall, led the SEC in pressures last year at Alabama. Again, part of it is just he was behind Dallas Turner. He was behind Will Anderson Jr., so he was kind of a late bloomer prospect last year. But this guy has like NFL strength right away, does not have like a massively diverse skill set in terms of, his edge rush moves. But I think he also has a clear path of playing time for Tampa Bay. And again, if Tampa Bay is good, and this guy can just compile a few sacks, that's kind of what it is, right? I mean, there's some playing time issues with some of the other guys ahead of him in terms of like competitors at the position, not necessarily on his team. It's really going to be like Yaya Diaby is going to be the edge rusher lead there. And then like Joe Tryon, Randy Gregory, Anthony Nelson, those guys are all just kind of at this point just Jags, right? So I think if Braswell comes in and is that dude, really strong football IQ, you listen to Saban talk about him when he got drafted, like he loved this kid. So he is also long odds wise. I think he is 40-1. I can stay a little bit longer. You can get a 60 on Braswell.
60. Yeah.
60 on FanDuel. So these are longer down the boards, defensive player of the year splashes that I think are both viable options. So a little bit spicy.
Yeah, no, that's also too a Junior Colson. It's not just the Harbaugh connection. Their defensive coordinator, Jesse Minter, was also at Michigan. And I would assume that those two will be making 99% of the decisions in terms of playing time. So, they're just going to throw them in there. And I have a feeling that some of your early tackle props, we're going to get some nice value in week 1 and 2 on a guy like Junior Colson there early in the season.
Yeah, so 5.5, let him play 80% of the snaps. And we're cooking.
Yeah, no, it's going to be great. I'm very much looking forward to that. And then the Braswell stuff, I'm going to probably just sprinkle a little bit on both those because I think those are both fun plays, multiple outs. It's kind of, I think they're good looks.
Yeah.
The reasoning makes a lot of sense,
Yeah, it's no fun to shoot at the top of the board in these markets too. There's so much variance. Like look, I mean, you look at Dallas Turner, like there's Minnesota like spent money on other guys at defensive end. Like it's not like Dallas Turner's not going to play. But like Dallas Turner very much could be a situational edge rusher. And if he doesn't convert to sacks, he's just not going to be on the field enough to make a massive impact. And he's short of 5-1. It's just a kind of a tough mix. Same thing. I love Latu, but he's in kind of a mix of other guys there in terms of playing time. Like, he's going to be with Kwity Paye, Simpson, and Buchan had a nice year. Like they have some other guys. So I like going down the board here, Braswell and Colson for sure. And again, north of 50, good prices.
Yeah, no, it's both fun looks there. So yeah, I'm going to be tailing those as well.
All right. Your third one you got.
This one is probably going to get an eye roll from you, but I'm sticking in the player situation here. It's by far my longest odds. But just hear me out. So I'm going to go with Najee Harris to lead the league in rushing yards.
Okay.
60 to 1.
Spicy.
60 to 1 at Caesars, 50 to 1 at FanDuel. So last 3 years, he has 1,035, 1,034, 1,200 rushing yards in 3 seasons in the NFL. He gets Arthur Smith. They loaded up on the offensive line. They're going to run the ball an unbelievable amount. Last year, the winner, CMC had like 1459. Next closest was 1122. These workhorse backs don't really exist anymore. There's Jonathan Taylor, obviously, who I think is going to have a great year, but has not been a statue of health. CMC, they've talked every year, been like, I don't know if we want to give him 20 carries. They've just been still giving him 20 carries anyways. Eventually, it's just not going to work out. He is going to be squarely in the mix no matter what. That's the thing. Barring an outrageous season from Derrick Henry or CMC or Jonathan Taylor, he is going to be squarely in the mix with 1,100 to 1,400 rushing yards. And at 60 to 1, I mean, the volume is going to be there. He's going to get 300 carries this year, 275 to 325 carries. If he ends that up top end and the Steelers' line is actually good this year, I mean, they've been terrible the last few years. I mean, who says he can't be reasonably efficient? Little over 4 yards per carry is totally fine. And again, all you're asking for is to be in the mix, 60 to 1. This should probably be closer to 25 to 1 given his workload. So again, it's a long shot. It's a hot take. There are definitely better options, on paper, but given the price, I think it's a lot of fun. The only fun thing about Najee Harris, but I think it'll be a lot of fun.
It's a bold prediction show, right? You weren't supposed to go. What do you think about this? Because I think also part of the path is his teammate. What if Jaylen Warren goes down? Right. Then you're cooking with gas.
Oh yeah.
What? And Jeff makes a point in the chat here. Najee ain't even going to lead his own team in rushing yards. And I understand that take. Why not hedge? Why not have both? Why not fire a little bit? What's Jalen's price? Because if Najee goes down,
it's higher than Jalen's. It's 50 to 1. Yeah, that's I don't understand that. So thing with the reason I took Najee, I think Jaylen Warren's a good player. The reason I took Najee is last year I was betting a lot on these Jaylen Warren, Najee Harris props. And apparently, so Mike Tomlin basically has gone on record and said Najee is our guy late in games, to wind away games. In between the tackles, it's just going to be Najee's our guy. And that's Tomlin making the calls. I know that they replaced our offensive coordinator, which I think people are attributing to like, oh, why wasn't Jalen Warren getting more touches? Because offensive coordinator. I don't think that's it. I think it was legit Mike Tomlin just being like, Najee's our guy. You know, like he's our one forever. And then he's going to be the guy at the end of games, like running the ball as many times as possible and like kind of salting away the game. So if we put it that way, like, I think the offensive coordinator change is like just a massive bonus for Najee and not the other way around, which is what some people are looking at with Jalen Warren. Because I like Jalen Warren. I think he's a good player, but they just don't seem to want to use him like a ton. But if Najee went down, like, what does that look like? I don't know. Like, who else would get touches, right? Like, it would just have to be
CPAT.
Yeah. Cordell Patterson too. They did bring in CPAT. I mean,
I don't think he's in the mix without
right
injury
away,
to one of the other two guys. Yeah. I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. I mean, look, and you can. This another narrative piece of it is like, right? They didn't extend his option, right? Like he's in the last year of his rookie deal. They just be like, hey, look, this dude's not coming back. Let's just bang out as many, take all the wear off the tires that's left, and just kind of ride him a little bit behind our big offensive line, and just kind of make it happen. It's a good price. I don't think it's flawed. I think you do a good job pointing out like the threshold to actually be in the mix is relatively low, right? This is not 2004, right. Where it's like you just had multiple guys running for 1,600 plus and just, guys pushing 2K. It's just not where we're at nowadays. So between, just work sharing and all that different stuff. So yeah, I almost went with the Pittsburgh one too. I thought that I was going to go with Justin Fields does not make a start this season. Not because I think he's, I just think that Russ is going to get the job out of the gate, and they have a kind of a schedule's hard, but like it's a little soft to open. I just think that's a little bit of leeway that Russ can build out. Just grab a hold of that job and keep it. So I don't hate that.
The more I dig into that offense, like the more it's just going to be like run, moonshot pass from Russ Wilson. And George Pickens is like a perfect fit for like those moon balls and like just getting open. And I don't know. I'm becoming more and more bullish on the George Pickens and stuff too. Generally, like, I think that he could have a big year, just not on a ton of volume, but like you lost Deontay Johnson and they added they just have a bunch of Jags wide receiver too. And he was already kind of out earning targets at the end of the year over Deontay anyway. So like, I mean, he could have a massive year. I don't know if the upside is really, because I don't think there's enough volume really to like, lead the league or anything like that. But, he had 1,100 yards last year, which is crazy to say. Like, could he, do 1,300? I mean, I don't know. It's in the mix. Jeff, real quick, Jeff added Spears for the Titans might be a better option. I think this is just like a egregious take. I think Tajay Spears is like, he's not going to sniff 1,000 rushing yards. I think Tony Pollard will probably be the 1A. He'll be the 1B. They'll both catch a ton of passes. They're going to pass the ball a ton. Their O-line is still not very good. I mean, it's just hard no for me. Sorry, Jeff.
Yeah. No, I like it. It's definitely spicy when I first heard it, but I think you did a good job presenting your case. So presentation, you get an A.
Thank you.
Maybe it's a C plus B minus pick, but I think the presentation was solid.
That's fair.
Definitely could have converted people. So I also, this is another one. I tried to not do this because I am a little bit of a hater of this team, and I don't want to like have that be, try not to have any biases, but I just, every year I kind of find there to be, I feel like this team is a little bit overrated, and I want to find ways to go against them. And I'm not really buying the Ravens. I'm a little bit off the Ravens. And I think that the Mike McDonald thing is a big deal. I think the Mike McDonald being gone, now they, obviously stayed in-house and promoted within, so there should be some continuity there on the defensive side. But I think they lost some talent that I think is impactful there too. And you just kind of look at the roster, it's solid, but I don't think that it's like, oh, this is a clear threat to be the number one seed again. I don't know. And I know that's probably going to hot take. It's a team that's just kind of constantly in the mix, banking against the defending MVP. Obviously they spent, a splash in free agency by bringing in Derrick Henry, but the offensive line has struggled to stay healthy. Some underperformers in there as well. The secondary receivers. Now again, Zay Flowers, I think is solid. If Mark Andrews can stay healthy, it's solid. It's just a bunch of just Jags. Now they're going to be able to run the ball, but like, I don't know, I'm worried again about the defensive backfield, the depth behind some guys that don't stay on the field. Brandon Stevens is solid. Marlon Humphrey, just not as good as his name as people think he is. He's also struggled to stay on the field. And look, for whatever you want to make of like Jadeveon Clowney, he was good for them last year, and he's gone. And they didn't do anything to replace him. It's all in-house guys. They've just moved up the pecking order. Like their premier edge rusher is Kyle Van Noy, who again, I made like, it's not a joke. Kyle Van Noy was doing spots on Pat McAfee in September last year. Like in studio, like, and then they pulled him off and like he started being, now he's their lead edge rushers. So I don't know. I think that they're closer to the other teams in the division. You know that I'm a pro Bengals guy. When Burrow's healthy, I think he is a talent elevator. I think that Cleveland defense is really solid. I like some of the other moves that they made there. The schedule's a little bit easier comparatively too. So there's a few ways to go about it. I just don't love the price to miss the playoffs at plus 250. Like I would want more for that. There's a couple ways to go about it. You can bet, again, MGM has this third place in the North at plus 350. Ooh. Even better is DraftKings has a Bengals Browns first and second in the division exacta at 9-1. So theoretically, this could be a 3-team playoff division. The Ravens could make the playoffs, but they could be the third team that kind of come back there in there. So 9-1 for basically the Ravens to be the third place team in the division behind the Browns, behind the division winner Bengals. Look, I get the Kyle Van Noy slander, Jeff, former Patriot. I get it. But again, like that was a while ago, man. And like, is this a premier, like this is your top edge rusher for one of the top 2 seeds in the AFC? Like, I'm just not feeling it. So I'm down on the Ravens. Just a lot of pressure on Lamar to be a talent elevator in terms of a pocket passer. And I think he can do it, but in terms of like really like leading this team to the next level behind just a bunch of Jags, I think, at wide receiver. So down on the Ravens, Connor. I know it's spicy.
It is. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of tough because I think you brought up some great points, and their schedule opens up like, I mean, it's brutal. Chiefs, Raiders week 2 is like the only reprieve, and then it's like at the Cowboys, at home against the Bills, then on the road against the Bengals. I mean, that's a very difficult 5. I mean, it's for the best teams in the NFL in the first 5 weeks. Like, I mean, they will have to play their absolute best to win all of those games. And if there's any talent drop off, anything issues with the defense, puts a lot of stress on Lamar, who, I mean, we know at this point, like it's just not at his best when he's playing like a pass heavy game script. It's just not.
No, having to come from behind, none of that. They still they don't do that well at all. They don't.
Yeah, it's just not his thing. So I don't know. There are some interesting bets here of like who will have the most wins on DraftKings too. So after the first 5 weeks, Chiefs, Ravens, or tie. We're looking at Chiefs is only minus 135. I mean, the Ravens might win like 2 games in that first 5 weeks. Like might be 2 and 3. 3 wins would be a massive win. 3 and 2 there. I don't know. That's kind of an interesting one. And then I like yours though, the derivative long shot there. And then you can take them under 9.5 wins is plus 280. So yep. I think 8 or 9 wins is like, again, not a terrible season. The issue is they play a lot of shitty teams like too. They start the season hot, and they get the Commanders, Bucks, Broncos. Like there's some bad Giants.
Giants are in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's some just straight gimmies. Like you're just giving them 4 or 5 wins to start the season, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's the thing. That's why I like the derivative for a couple of reasons, because it doesn't box them out of being a playoff team. They can still be a playoff team in that scenario. They're just the third team in the division. And then they still can get them in, even if they're at 9 wins, depending, because the AFC is going to be tough. We know it's going to be tough. So, yeah, I have some concerns with the wide receiver room. I have concerns with the offensive line. It's not great. Ronnie Stanley's not been a picture of health. He's been good when he's on the fields, but he's had trouble. The interior of the offensive line is kind of just okay. They need probably starting a rookie at right tackle. What if something happens and Derrick Henry goes down? Like it's, Keontae Mitchell's already going to be slow to start the season. He got hurt late in the year. It's going to be a lot of Justice Hill. Like And that's kind of your bread and butter is to run the football, because behind Zay Jones or Zay Flowers, it's obviously Mark Andrews, Isaiah likely solid. So you still have a solid group there. But like Aguilar, Bateman, it's just kind of a meh group. And like part of it last year, I think Mike McDonald was able to really do a great job, like just manufacturing pressure. He's going to have to do it again. Patrick Queen is gone. So like Trenton Simpson barely saw the field last year. Now he's going to be playing every snap. Not a lot of depth behind him. What if Roquan goes down? Roquan is a massive, massive piece. He's a super important piece for them this year. If they lose him, and Marcus Williams couldn't stay on the field last year. So just there's a couple of key players that are really, really contingent on the success of the Ravens. And if something happens there, like I feel pretty good about this one.
All right, here I got a good bet. I've been dishing up here. So it's first 5 weeks, Bengals to have more wins than the Ravens, minus 115 only on DraftKings. The Bengals' first 5 games, they have at home against the Patriots, at home against the Commanders, on the road against the Panthers, and then the other 2 games are Chiefs, which obviously, that's fine. That's one game. And then at home against the Ravens. So like, I mean, you're talking about 3 wins they're favored by 7+ in those the first 3 games or whatever, like at least in the 2 home games. And Panthers, I don't know. We'll see. It's probably around 7. The Ravens are probably short favorites in that game at home. I don't know. I think that's an interesting one there on DraftKings, because minus 115 to have, again, the Ravens are probably going to have 2 to 3 wins. The Bengals have 3+ wins, like almost automatically.
Look, the Chiefs have to lose some games. They're not going to go undefeated. And who's played them pretty well? The Bengals have played them pretty well since Joe Burrow's
got
been
his number,
So, I looked at that too, because I was looking at, I did the opposite. I did the teams to start 0-5. There's a market for that. There's teams to start 5-0. I got kind of hung up on that game for the Bengals, but Bengals are, I think, 7-1 to start 5-0 too as an alternative to that. So yeah, I mean, I'm pro Bengals guy this year. I think their defense is going to be really good. And if Burrow can stay on the field, I think they're going to be an exciting team. So yeah, sorry. I mean, I feel like I had probably a bold prediction or a hot take last year that was also anti-Ravens. And that's just, I don't know. I feel like it's thin. There are a couple of things that can happen to make it go away. So
well, it took Mike McDonald just like being, one of the best coaches in the league. So
yeah, it's a huge, right. He's a huge part of your handicap for your first play. And now he's gone.
Yeah.
Right. From this side of it. So I think you have to look at it both ways. All right, bring us home. What's your last one?
Yeah, this is one I think you agree with. Jets are winning the Super Bowl. 20-1, 12-1 to win the AFC. Jets are winning the Super Bowl. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers can stay upright, this defense is fantastic. They added Mike Williams, so it's not just Garrett Wilson and a bunch of, Rodgers cronies from, the rest of his time. Like, they have actually legitimate talent. They drafted Malachi Corley as well to be kind of like a piece. Breece Hall is healthy, who's, when healthy, again, one of the most electric running backs in the league. Like, they have everything. Their offensive line is a little bit better. Like, it's one of those things where they just keep adding talent and more talent. And so I'm interested in them. They revamped the entire offensive line. So again, it's like they just have everything. And like, that's not being priced as that. Like, everyone's so scared because like, oh, Rodgers tore his Achilles on the first play, or he's old, or he's doing ayahuasca or whatever. Like, all very, real reasons of not to like a team specifically. But if those aren't concerns, if Rodgers can stay healthy, like, this team is a very legitimate contender. And they're currently my Super Bowl pick. I was going to go to win the AFC, but at this point, like, I mean, if they're going to win the AFC, like, they're just go for the win Super Bowl.
Yeah, you're through the Chiefs, and that's really kind of it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, at that point, you might as well go all the way. Yeah, I mean, I think they win the AFC East. I think they're the best team in that division. It's definitely the best roster. You were obviously banking a lot on an older quarterback that, fair to have some questions and concerns, but also the roster is really, really solid. So I don't hate it. I'm also in the mindset right now of like, it's, my brain's always in golf at this time of year. It's like going against Mahomes. It's almost like, why am I going to mess around against against Scotty Scheffler? It's like, I'm just trying to find ways to get really fancy when it's like, oh, the Scheffler's in the tournament. Like, all right. Like, until something happens with Patrick Mahomes, we saw last year. I mean, I think that Niners team was significantly better, tip to tails than the Chiefs were, but it just didn't really matter in the end. he got the ball back with a couple minutes left, and he was able to take them down and do his thing. So I'm going to be on probably the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, but I think the Jets are going to be a threat this year as long as they can stay healthy at key spots. The one in that area that I think is an interesting kind of other way to play it, Sauce is 60-1 to win Defensive Player of the Year.
Interesting.
Now, that's long, and again, it's another like edge rushers, sacks are sexy. You look at the top of the board in terms of Defensive Player of the Years. It's it's TJ Watt, it's Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa, it's Myles Garrett, it's the guys that you think are, Hutchinson is up there now based off of what we expect Detroit to be. Should be Max Crosby. Unfortunately, the Raiders are not good enough, and that kind of rules him out. But you're a couple of interceptions. They're the best defense in the league, and Jets go 13-4. They're the number one seed in the AFC. Sauce is interesting at 60-1. That gets significantly shorter as we kind of approach December in award season there. So yeah, I'm with you as much as it hates me. This is again the evolution of fandom because I hate the Jets. I think it's a really good team. So hard to argue.
I mean, I'm proud of you. 5 years ago, there's no way you would have been able to even agree with me. You've just been like, fuck that, Drake May, and
can't do it. Can't do it. No, I think it's the roster's good, man. We're a little bit removed, but like 2 MVPs for Rodgers in the last handful of years. I don't think he's like fallen off a cliff. I think he's smart enough to learn how to be efficient and figure it out. So yeah, I like it. Spicy though, for sure.
He doesn't need to even be that good. That's the thing. Like they won 7 games last 2 years with literally the worst quarterback play in the league, though some of the worst offensive line play in the league, like just downright trash surroundings, like no wide receiver depth. Like, they got better in every single area significantly. So I don't know.
I like it. All right, good stuff. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us today. Those are our start of our bold. I'm sure we'll have some more bold takes, maybe another section of our show as we approach actual kickoff to week 1 here as the season quickly approaches. So subscribe here to the 4for4 Bets YouTube channel. Stay with us for leading up to the season. Obviously, you're going to want to hang with us during the season. We'll have our Move the Line game preview show in season. We'll have prop drop on Friday. As always, great time handing out prop winners there as well. Again, we continue to be here every week leading up to the season. So get the betting sub, 4for4.com/plans. Again, betting sub gets you access to everything that we do. And that's really where you want to be if you are betting with us this season. So for Connor, I'm Ryan. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks, everyone.